The true victims of a patriarchy are low status men, men who have no sexual abundance, men who don't have a wife or can never find a wife, men who cannot have no upward financial mobility. That is the actual true victims of patriarchy. It is not
Yep.
women. You know, there was a mischaracterization by one woman where she was talking about other primates and the way that they mate,
Yeah.
and then trying to compare that to Homo sapiens.
Yeah, this idea that we can look at another species and model our behavior off that species is kind of silly. The way that our species behaves is the way that it behaves. Something that type of thinking tries to do is it tries to absolutize everything in the way things work. It's never the way we've developed, it's never ourselves. It's always the surroundings. So they'll say things like, our society has made us be this way. Well, who made society? It was us who chose that. And we did it with our minds that evolved through our bodies. So this is the way that we make things happen. We have a really complicated social structure that we use for mate selection. And it's not monogamous and it's not polyamorous. It's people are trying to maximize for something that you can't get without denying someone else what they want. The male strategy and the female strategy are fundamentally opposed to each other on a certain level, unless conditions are impossibly perfect, which they never are.
Mm.
So when I hear people talking about that, I mean, there was one time I went to this pizza place, this beer and pizza house, and the waitress was telling me how chimpanzees were vegan and peaceful. And it was like, you saw one thing for 10 seconds on the internet, didn't you? Because chimpanzees are like the most violent. They just it's called something like the sand under the beach or the appeal to nature. They look at something that is less sophisticated and they say, well, if it's less sophisticated, it must be closer to nature and nature can't be wrong. But none of that is true.
By the way, it goes the other way too. People don't like the fact whenever in evolutionary psychology, you come to a determination that people are the way they are because of their natural proclivities. It doesn't mean that it's right. Meaning, like, for
Yeah.
instance, a man walking out on his wife and she's having sex with another man, him wanting to murder the two of them, that is absolutely based in evolution.
Yeah,
Please,
for
I will
sure.
show you documentation. Anyone who wants to argue that that has to do with a small penis syndrome or that the man is insecure, you are deluding yourself. That is
Yeah.
based absolutely in evolution. We see other animals do the same thing. Now, you acting on it is not good for society. Your wife cheated on you. It's time to find another wife or to get out of that
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah, just got to do
Murdering
something.
them, yeah, murdering them affects her family, possibly your children. It's
Hmm.
better to not murder your wife if she were to cheat on you. And so, if you were to understand that, that's one of the things where even though evolutionary psychology creates that jealousy and rage, it doesn't make it right. It's
Right.
about what is and not about what ought. And so that's,
Yeah.
I think that's where people find the difference. And but specifically going back to the chimp versus gorilla situation, there was the girl and she was making the assertion that what we should all do is women should be able to have sex with who they want and live in a communal tribe so
Yeah.
that all the men raise their children. And
Yeah.
you were describing what would happen if we lived in a society like that.
Yeah, it's what's happening now. It's if you do that, all she's really describing is the ideal female sexual strategy, where she gets to have sex with who she wants when she wants, and so decide who gets her pregnant because her body knows when she's fertile, and then draw on the resources of everybody, whether they're getting to reproduce or not. And the way that she said it was everyone sleeps with everybody, but the way that it actually works is that the women become way more choosy, not less. This is when you open things up, the women go from selecting someone on their level after getting to know them to, is there no punishment anymore for sleeping with who I want? Well, then we're all going to go to the top. And now
Yeah.
these guys are paying and these guys are getting everything, and then they drop out and quit. And they have, loneliness epidemics and everything. And it's like, well, you are getting what you want. You said you wanted to change society in this way. You kind of did to some degree, and it's horrible. It's no one's happy. Women are on SSRIs. They're complaining, where have all the good men gone is a meme. It's one of the most common things they say. There's that whole statistic about 30% of men are either virgins or not capable of finding anyone within the last year. It's a pretty big departure from it seems to me like people are less happy and getting what they want less because of it.
If you keep that chart up, that's a great chart. If you show
Mhm.
that, what will happen is, so if you guys look over here on the right, one of the things that she was talking about, obviously, I don't want to, if I show the clip, we're going to get flagged on YouTube, even though I know
Yeah.
home math, it wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's just something that happens.
Automatic. Yeah.
If you guys go back and watch the clip, it's one of his most recent clips, one of the most recent shorts. When he goes back to the girl is basically stating, hey, wouldn't it be better if we could all just sleep with whoever we wanted, like bonobos do? And bonobos do. By the way, bonobos are so non-selective as primates that the men have sex with other men and they're not even gay. The
Yeah.
males have sex with other males and they're not gay. They're just having sex with whatever's in front of them.
Yeah, they do
you
it
should look it
as
up.
a social function.
Correct. It's just a social function. The act of sex is just like shaking hands for them. So
Yeah.
in this situation, so what'll happen is the women, what they want is we can have sex with whoever we want, right? But the guys that they would normally put in the friend zone or not see as attractive, those men would still be involved in parental care. You guys remember It Takes a Village.
Mhm.
So all the men would be involved in the parental care of the children, but the women would be able to have sex with who they want. And like we've said before, all the women are going to choose 10 and 9 and 8, probably just 10 and 9. And then what'll happen is, and this is where the part that she misses, and you illustrated perfectly, is what happens is 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm talking about those blue men over there on the right side. They are now receiving nothing. So they have a ton of responsibility, but they get no reward or authority for their behavior. Does that make sense? So now they're in charge of procuring and providing for the tribe, but they receive nothing for it. And then that's one of the things where society starts to break down.
You have to incentivize them. Men who are not getting attention from women, what is their incentive to work? Well, what about paying your rent? That isn't living a life where you know you're doing nothing but going to work and paying rent isn't going to give you any kind of satisfaction. They ignore that. They sort of ignore the needs of these people. They consider themselves the more, empathic, the more moral side of the argument. But then there's this whole enormous chunk of people who are feeling denied any kind of hope or future. And the response is, so eat Cheetos and play video games. Who cares? Be happy with that. And that's not going to work. You're creating enormous numbers of people who are so dissatisfied with the way that society is treating them that there was some quote from somewhere. I wish I remembered where it was. It was something like a child who doesn't feel the warmth of the village will burn it down to feel its warmth or something.
Yes.
Yeah, if they're not being included in some way that they feel is satisfactory, they're not going to just smile and go, "Oh, sure, I'll do work all the time for nothing." They're not going to do that.
Yeah, and you had a clip where a woman was talking about 100 years ago how women were, ostracized and oppressed,
Mhm.
and so now because men are lonely, then maybe the thing to do is to
Throw them in the
lock them
yeah.
up in insane asylums. And I'm just trying to get people to understand this. Okay, if you're going to let a group of society, if you continue to say that they're a privileged class and that nothing bad can happen to them, eventually when something bad happens to them, you can't act like they don't have muscles, can't vote, don't have jobs, don't have money, don't have an ability to say anything. And then you can't be surprised when they finally say something.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, again, we'll go back to the Civil Rights Act. You can't consistently oppress African Americans for years and then be confused when they want some level of equality. You cannot consistently, because I've said this before, patriarchy does not help men and hurt women. Patriarchy helps a small group of men at the top, and it
Yeah.
really oppresses women. The true victims of a patriarchy are low status men who have no sexual abundance, men who don't have a wife, or can never find a wife, men who cannot have no upward financial mobility. That is the actual true victims of patriarchy. It is not
Yep.
women. You know what I'm saying? And like, one of the things I really loved is right after we did our interview, you talked about how women have it easy, or women have it easier, but they don't have it easy. It's actually men at the top who have it the easiest.
Yeah, this is the best place to be in terms of
Yeah.
comfort and getting what you want. And then pretty much all women have it easier than the lower men. It's like people treat them like they don't deserve anything. If you're a woman of any quality and you don't have enough, someone will feel bad for you. There's a place for you to go. There's women's shelters everywhere. There's no men's shelters. And they're all out sleeping on the street. Homelessness is overwhelmingly male. In the human mind, there is just a lack of empathy built in for men. And nature is cruel, and that's the way that nature is cruel. That they're like nature needs to design species to have functions that exclude and get rid of the weak. You can't give to everybody an equal amount of support because then the weak would grow as well as the strong and the whole species would be ruined. You have to, like, some people should have more kids and some people should have less, or else the whole species gets weaker. But there's a level of balance that you need to keep functioning for society to work, because you have to extract value from these men. And if you're not giving them a sufficient level of value back, they won't agree to it. And
Yeah.
that's the way it's going to be until we have robots making the electricity run and the water come to your house. If men have to do that and they're not getting anything for it, then they're not going to do it.
Yes, and you also express that in forms of taxation, where men generally
Hmm.
pay more in taxes
Yeah.
than women, and in part because they make more money. But
Hmm.
women tend to benefit more from taxation
Hmm.
than men. And then eventually we get to a point where it's like, what am I paying these taxes for? And then you start seeing lots of wealthy men. What do? They move to Dubai, they move
Hmm.
to Puerto Rico, they move to different places like that because they feel like they're paying more than their fair share.